On the back chair.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have just concluded our Township's annual meeting for 2014. We're going to begin or step into the regular business meeting, the Goseal Township Board of Trustees for March 24th, 2014. I'll call the meeting to order at 8:32. All the board members are present. Let's, again, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this point, we'll consider additions or deletions to the agenda, and we do have some modifications in order.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, I would like to delete action item number 9, web creative approval.
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Smith, seconded by Clerk Ranka, to delete action number 9. Any commentary on that? Any discussion among the board on its removal? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of removing action, deleting action item number 9, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None offered? Okay, that won't be deleted. I'm going to request we delete action item number 5. Support. Okay, I moved by Supervisor, and I didn't catch who seconded. Treasurer Van Oss. The appointment of Township consultants, that was a misnomer on our parts. We had overlooked something. So, and there was one other request, and that was from the Mrs. Smith.
Yes, I would like to vote on that one.
I forgot to vote. Thank you. Thank you. Those in favor of deleting action item number 5, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered. Thank you. Mrs. Smith.
Yes, for action item number 3, there's an addition. I'd like to add Julie Cordes, a reappointment to the Festival Commission.
I'd like to, can we administratively add those as we, rather than do it, because we have several corrections, so we'll move that on to those action items.
Okay.
Action item 8 was the other one there was a request, and that was, is that back in?
No.
It's not in. Okay. So then, request to delete action item 8, the award for bid for East River School Playground ADA. I will move that we delete that item. Support. Okay, supported by Trustee Budney. Apparently there just weren't any bids in yet, so there's no point in voting on it. Those in favor of deleting action item 8, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None offered. We will delete that, and I will also move that we add, it was just an administrative, minor error, add public comment prior to Mrs. Darsniak's presentation. We normally offer public comment at that time.
Support.
So moved that we add public comment to the agenda, supported by Trustee Smith. Again, just an oversight. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? None offered. So we'll add public comment between approval, which we are now, and the presentation to come. Any other additions, deletions to the agenda? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. The agenda stands amended with...
Comment in the middle?
Mr. Clark.
Where's the comment?
Mr. Clark, it's coming up next. Let me run the meeting, please. Trust me, I'm taking care of you. Okay, with that, I will open it to public comment, limited to agenda items. Anybody other than Mr. Clark? I'm kidding, Woody. Mr. Clark.
Come on, let's get him.
Let's get him.
Get him. Okay, number 10, 3 boardroom cameras. Why are we buying HD when we don't use HD? We don't send HD.
We're going to be discussing that one, Mr. Clark.
You can't say anything now?
Well, it's not up for discussion now. You make your comments, we take notes, and we add that when we discuss it. So your question is, why have HD
Why
cameras
HD?
when we're not
Because
broadcasting?
we're not
HD?
sending HD.
Very good. Duly noted. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Other public comment limited to agenda items. All right, with none offered, we'll close the public comment and step right into the presentation you've all been waiting for. The proposed budget for the fiscal year 2014 ending March 31st of 2015.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening, Mrs. Darsniak.
Hopefully, at the end of this, we'll have some good news. We have been diligently working on the 2014-2015 budget. I just want to thank all the time and effort that the Board of Trustees as well as my managers have put into making this budget this year, really taking into account we've had some tough financial years for the last several years, and now it actually, as Brian had mentioned, it looks like things are starting to turn around, and so hopefully we will do this in some graphs. Obviously the budget is about 100 pages long. We can definitely not go into all of it, and basically our budget is a working tool for the operations of the government. As of March 31st, we will conduct an audit, which that basically is your actual to date. So we use the budget all year round as an operating tool to see where we're going. The first slide that I have before you is the total state equalized value. This is what we base our taxes on. It's based on the value over the years. As you can see, in 2009, that was our best year. It was $654 million. And as you can see, in 10, 11, 12, we had those were our difficult financial years, and we were going into fund balance to keep the township operations going. In 2013, which was the previous year, we actually seen for the first time an increase in our state equalized value. These numbers are determined by the state of Michigan. These are out of our control. So in 2014, again, when we did my long year projections over the last 5 years, this year was the first year that it's proved to go in the other direction. So we do have some good news to say that the taxable values are increasing. And we project those to go up slightly in the next several years. Here's our township millages. We recognized over the past several years that the taxable value has gone down so much. Our millages pretty much stayed the same. In the last year, thanks to the voters, we had an additional township police millage as well as a recreation millage. These were very helpful in keeping us stabilized. As you can see, it actually created to be where we were before without raising taxes an exorbitant amount, but it puts the township back in perspective as far as the general fund and recreation department. Very, very helpful, and very thankful that the residents found these to be valuable. If you look at our total millages, a portion is operating millages, and then a portion is our debt millages. The debt millages have stayed the same. The majority of our debt millages are based on the sewer separation project, as well as our public safety building, which will be coming up, will be paid off. So the majority is the sewer separation project. Now we want to look at obviously I'm not going to go into everything, I just want some broad terms. The budgets will be available online, and they're also available in the back. But if we look at the 2014-2015 total budget of all funds, our total budget is a little over $24 million. Last year, it was a little over $25 million. So our total budget has declined by about 4.89% overall. If we look at some of the major areas, obviously taxes is almost $9 million. State share revenue is at $813,000, which has actually been increasing. And we just went to a seminar that basically said our state share revenues continue to grow up at about 3%, which is good, and that's a positive for all municipalities. Other revenue is about $2.6 million. Charges for services is about $7 million, which basically makes up of all the airport enterprise funds and the Department of Public Service funds. And then we have some grant revenue, and then our prior resources is our money that's available that's on hand for projects. Again, looking at the total uses, this is how we spend our money. It's the same thing, $24 million, which is basically general fund of about $5 million. Our biggest funds are general fund of about $5.2 million, our DPW, which is about $5.9 million, and another big area is our debt service, which makes up about $4.5 million. So that's the majority of the total budget. We talk about our liabilities that are out there. This is our debt that is out there. We realize that there is, our total debt outstanding for bonds is about $40 million. If you take that over the little over 4,000 households we have, that's about $10,000 a household. You can see that the amount due with any year is about $3.5 million. Bless you. And you can see that the majority of is that our sewer system, which is still at about 22 million, and the judgment bond for the SSES. So that's about 26 million of our total $40 million. So a lot of money has been put into that project and bonded out. Again, just overall, we want to talk about staffing and where we are. Currently, we have about 47 full-time employees. We are down about 20 employees, and we have retired 28 employees. And we have also 25 volunteer, and this is basically who's on healthcare. We have a lot more retired people, but they're not on the healthcare system. But you can see what the active, where we've been, and how many people are retired. I'm just going to look at some employee cost. Look at wages as a percent for the non-union, union, and POAM union. Over the 16 years from this time period, the non-union increase has been 2.24%. The union has been 2.45%, and the police union has been at 2.3%. So overall, consumer price index has been about 2.15%. Seems like through government, wages and fringes are always a hot topic of discussion. So just wanted to pull this out there to let people know. And then, in general, obviously, again, employee cost has been the topic, whether it be here, whether it be in other communities, and whether it be at the level of the state of Michigan. If we look at if we look at gross wages, in 2010, it was a little over $4 million. And in today's budget, it's $3.3 million. And basically where that comes from is when we are talking about being 20 people down, it's about attrition that we haven't replaced people. We just kept doing what we do with our current staff levels. So we've dropped current staff levels, and thus it drops, obviously, the gross wages. Some things we do with healthcare. If you look at our healthcare cost in 2010, it was about 1.3. Today, we actually budgeted a little less than that. We budgeted at 1.2. Healthcare cost over the past several years, we implemented the hard cap, which basically limits the cost to the township of what we're allowed to spend on an individual, a couple, and a family. That's part of the EVIP from the state of Michigan to try to control healthcare cost. And obviously, the plan in place is working because it's keeping cost containment over the last several years. Another one is the MERS retirement. That's the employee's pension plan. So we spend about $800,000 in 2010, and it went down because we did have a lot of people retire. We didn't replace, so we had high costs, and then they started to go down. And recently, over the last couple of years, we've increased by about $40,000, but the reason for that increase is due to we have an unfunded liability, and MERS is actually requiring that you pay the unfunded liability. It used to be over a period of 30 years. Every year they're reducing it by a year, so we're taking on more costs so that our unfunded liability will be gone. And hopefully they say within, they want to get down to a 20-year amortization period. So we're paying more costs now, but we're reducing the amount of unfunded liability over time.
I mean, that was quite a surprise to us. Imagine your mortgage carrier come up and saying, you used to have a 30-year mortgage paying this much a month. We're making it 27 years and you're paying more. The budget's a moving target because of things like this that we can't plan around.
Right. But just to bring light, for new hires, we did reduce, we're now at a 2-tier level for new hires as opposed to the people who have already been here. So we are lowering the amount of defined benefit that are to new hires, which will also help in containing those costs. Now we're going to look at general fund. Right now, the general fund projection is $5,181,948. That's actually down from the previous year. From last year, we budgeted $5.3 million. So total general fund budget is about down 2.25%. What I do want to point out is good news. So property taxes are at $3.3 million. State share revenue is at $813. The building department is at $248. And we see this year we actually have conservatively budgeted a balanced budget. We are not going into prior year resources. Like I said, due to the additional police millage and due to the increase in state shared revenue and increase in the building department, currently this year we had 16 homes built, which is great news that things are turning around. We projected that we'd have 4 and we had 16. So something none of us expected, but we can see that things are we've weathered the storm and we're finally headed in the right direction. So again, proud to issue a budget without going into prior year resources. As far as expenditures, again, the police department makes up about $3 million of general fund, and you can see the other different departments. Basically, looking, as we said, the budget is a tool for operations. It's not exact, based on estimates. A lot of our budgeting is based probably 90% on history. We're more historians than we are optimist projectionists. But so in the slide you can see our budget expenditures versus our actual. We're pretty close. I mean, it's never right on, but it is within reason. In 2010, we had the sale of the open space, so it kind of distorted the numbers. But in total, the line's pretty straight. We do a pretty good job. When you take a look, this is pretty good. When you look at general fund, the average increase for the last 16 years is 1.72%. That's pretty darn good. I don't know how many communities are going to say, 16 years ago that their budget was the same as it is today. Just wanted to give you some numbers as far as where we've been. If we look from 2009, the last good year that we had, general fund contributed $140,000 back in the fund balance. If we look at 10 and 11, we had some open space, we had some toll bridge costs, we wrote off Water's Edge. There were some big expenditures, and then in 2011, the open space transfer made that balance. But then in 2012, we went into fund balance by $247. In 2013, we actually came out ahead at $93,000. And then the current year that's ending in a few days, I projected 43 to the negative, but actually looking again, after these were done, we ran our last payroll and the last bills. I actually see that as going in a positive direction again. So, and again, we are pleased to present a 2015 balanced budget.
If I can just make one comment on the March 31st, the budget ending and March 31st, the budget we're winding down now. The original projection, original projection was how much of a reach?
The original projection was negative 300 in the hole, so we were actually projected we go into fund balance by $300,000. Obviously, we weren't that far off, but in reality, the building department, with those 60 new homes, brought in another $170,000 that we had not expected. No one would have ever thought that would happen. Also, so that's $170,000 that we could have did the crystal ball and never would have found that. Also, with the passing of the recreation millage, that brought another $60,000 that general fund did not have to reimburse the rec department for the bond payment, so now they are on their own. And we also, so that was, and then an additional $50,000 that we budgeted for attorney fees that we didn't have to use. So that's about $280,000 of the $300 that we budgeted. And other than that, if you look at the line items to date, everyone is pretty much under budget. So just because we create a budget doesn't mean every department spends every penny of it. We do watch, and that makes our conservative in nature. But again, and we forecast in the future based on some of the things I said, things are really going to turn around, and hopefully we'll have money to do things that will make a difference. And finally, just a budget graph to show what I just explained to you. So basically, things are heading in the right direction. Haven't been able to say that for a couple years, but last year, the actual financials have proved that things are actually turning around. So, any questions?
We'll have some more discussion on this when this comes up for the budget approval comes up for a vote. But thank you for the presentation. Ann does this every day, so the little nuances that really strike me, trying to get what I consider some important points out to the residents who haven't had their noses in this forever. Anyway, I thought it was important to bring out a couple of points. We'll bring out a few more later, but Ann has been working this very hard. She's had to put up with me, and she weathers it well. So thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stark.
Great job, Ann. Thank you.
Well, that does conclude our presentation. We'll move to the consent agenda.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to recommend approval of consent agenda 14-022, which is the approval of the minutes of the March 10th, 2014 regular meeting, approval of check register dated March 21st, 2014, and approval to process and distribute payments through April 14th, 2014.
Support. Okay, moved by Treasurer Van Oss, seconded by Trustee Budney. Those in any discussion, questions on the consent agenda among the board? Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered. The consent agenda stands approved. Moving on to action items.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Ranka.
I recommend that the Groesville Township Board approve the proposed meeting schedule for the Board of Trustees for the fiscal year 2014 through 2015.
Okay, supported by, moved by Clerk Ranka, supported by Trustee Posiask, adoption of the 14-15 fiscal year board meeting calendar, adhering to our second and fourth Mondays with a couple of holidays deleted. Any discussion among the board? And maybe cancel another one if we just don't have the need. Okay, those in favor of approving the business meeting schedule, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered? That stands approved. I was hoping Lauren would pick up the next one.
Oh, sure, why not? Mr. Supervisor, I would like to make a motion to approve the 2014-2015 Township staff holidays. And
Support.
Okay, moved by Trustee Smith, seconded by Trustee Budney. Obviously, the holidays, the township offices are closed. We just need all these published ahead of time to work our schedules around it. Discussion among the board on the holiday schedule. Okay, with none offered, those in favor of approving the, and this is also part of the negotiated contracts with our two labor unions. So those in favor of approving the holiday schedule as published, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, aye. Those in favor? Okay, none offered. The fiscal year holiday schedule stands approved. Commission committee member appointments and reappointments. This is essentially it's going to be like a consent agenda. I've asked that should this get a motion and a second, that the trustees propose the members they would like appointed or reappointed.
Support.
Okay, I guess I've moved it, and moved by the supervisor and seconded by Trustee Budney. And so I'll let Mr. Ranka begin with the Planning Commission.
Sure, from the Planning Commission stand, we move to confirm the supervisor's reappointment of Ann Jaworowski to the Planning Commission for the term April 1st, 2014 through March 31st, 2017.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Treasurer?
I move to reappoint Mr. John Rathel, Walter Stoll to the Airport Commerce Park Commission, and also the Brownfield Authority for the term of April 1st, 2014 to March 31st, 2017.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Posiask?
To reappoint Daryl Filarski and Roberta Urbani to the Greenways Open Space Committee for the term of April 1, 2014 to March 31, 2017.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Posiask. I will ask the board to approve the reappointment of Mr. Al Herfy to the Construction Board of Appeals for the term of 1 April 2014 to March 31st, 2016. Also ask the board to approve the reappointment of Mr. Art Kester, Gerard Page, Brian Medved, and Richard Eifert to the Island Beautification Committee for the term April 1, 2014 to March 31st, 2017. As I am rolling, I will ask the board to reappoint Mr. Peter Stachel to the Downtown Development Authority for the term from October 1st, 2013 to September 30th, 2017. Mr. Budney.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I would ask the board to March 31st, 2017.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Budney. Clerk Ranka.
To reappoint Carl Bletcher to the Police Commission for the term April 4th, 2014 to April 3rd, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Budney.
To reappoint James Nelson and Ronald Wilder to the Public Service Commission for the term of April 2014 to March 31st, 2017.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Budney. Mr. Malvesto.
To reappoint Walter Ketcher, Michael Swales, Greg Meyering, William Moreau, John Conroy, Helena Woodward Ryan, and Ethel Yops to the Community Recreation Commission, term April 1st, 2014 to March 31st, 2017.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Malvesto. Ms. Smith?
to reappoint Rita O'Connor to the Communications Commission for the term April 1st, 2014 to March 31st, 2017, and to appoint Gerard Page to the Communications Commission for the term April 1st, 2014 to March 31st, 2015.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Smith. And one more?
Yes, there was an ad that was left off accidentally. I would like to reappoint Julie Cordes to the Festival Commission, and unfortunately, I don't have those terms because it wasn't, I'm assuming it's going to be somewhat.
April 1st for 3 years?
Yeah, is Tim still here?
No.
No, okay. He will, yeah.
That's an administrative ad.
Okay.
We'll fill it in.
Thank you.
We're well versed. Okay. Some other notes on this motion. We have some who have opted not to continue, and we'll get the formal, hopefully there'll be a formal resignation, but at this point, I'd like to thank these individuals, Cheryl Hurt from the Planning Commission, Ms. Linda Tilley from Island Beautification, and Mr. James Morris, who had chaired the Construction Board of Appeals. All have moved on to other things, and to those of you, thank you again for your service to the township. Is there any further discussion or comments on the commission committee appointments and reappointments? Okay, if none offered, those in favor of approving those commission and committee appointments and reappointments beginning fiscal year 2014 through 2015, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered? They all say thank you, thank you, thank you again. Now we'll move on to
Appointments of committee chairman.
the chair appointments. Somebody else can do it.
Happy to do it if you wish.
All right, Mr. Posias, thank you.
All right, this subject is the appointment of committee and commission chairpersons for fiscal year 2014 through 2015. First is to appoint John Swigert, fiscal 13-14, to the Planning Commission for the term April 1, 2014 to March 31, 2015. The second is to appoint Ron Moran as chairman of the Brownfield Authority for the term of April 1, 2014 to March 31, 2015. The third is to appoint William Kostick as chairman of the Public Services Commission for the term April 1, 2014 through March 31, 2015. Number 4 is to appoint Cliff St. Pierre as chairperson of the Greenways Open Space Committee for the term of April 1, 2014 through March 31st, 2015. The fifth appointment is to appoint Stuart Keeler as chairman of the Fire Commission for the term of April 1, 2014 to March 31, 2015. Number 6.
And I'll ask to delete Mr. Morris. He's left the community.
Okay. And number 7, to appoint Carl Bletcher as chairman of the Police Commission for the term April 4th, 2014 through April 3rd, 2015. To appoint Walter Ketcher, chairman of the Community Recreation Commission for the term of April 1, 2014 through March 31, 2015. To appoint Chad Novak, chairperson of the Festival Commission for the term April 1, 2014 through March 31, 2015. To appoint Kathy Walker as chairperson of the Communication Commission for the term of April 1, 2014 through March 31, 2015, and to appoint Ron Moran, number 12, as chairperson of the Downtown Development Authority for the term April 1, 2014 through March 31, 2015. Number 13, to appoint Art Kester as chairperson of the Island Beautification Committee for the term of April 1, 2014 through March 31, 2015. To appoint James Bittinger as chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the term of April 1, 2014 through March 31, 2015. To appoint Al Anderson as chairperson of the Airport Advisory Committee for the term of April 1, 2014 to March 31, 2015. To appoint Brian Pollock as chairperson of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission for the term of April 1, 2014 through March 31, 2015. And number 17, to appoint Richard Nielsen as chairperson of the Board of Review for the term March 5th, 2014 to December 31st, 2015.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prozance. We'd like to make one add to that, and that would be to appoint Ron Moran as Chair of the Airport Commerce Park Commission for the term of April 1st, 2014 through March 31st, 2015. There's a lot to read there, and don't leave Mr. Moran out. Discussion among the board on these appointments of the commission committee chairs. Oh, we didn't get that?
Support.
Okay, seconded by Clerk Rankin. Thank you.
Just one comment. All of these guys are very diligent, highly educated, and highly advanced in all the fields that they endeavor in. And I can't thank them enough for their service in agreeing to do this for another year.
Well put.
Yeah, I would like to add that, not just for the chair people, but for the entire commissions. And there's roughly 120-some people that serve on the commissions, and Mr. Supervisor, as you pointed out, they do the bulk of the work for the community in addition to the township staff. So we're very fortunate and very appreciative to have service of all of the commissions and committees.
Thank you, Clerk Rankin. Other comments among the board? All right, with none offered, those in favor of approving the appointment of the commission committee chairs for fiscal year 2014-15 as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered? Those appointments stand approved. Let's see, that moves us to action item 6, the non-unit management wage adjustment. Let me I'm still working on this tablet thing. Eric keeps trying to show me how to use the bookmarks in it. That's down a ways. Okay, I will move that that the Grosse Ile Township Board of Trustees approve the non-union, which would be the primarily the management wages for fiscal year 2014 in accordance with the proposed management wage adjustment chart dated March 24th, 2014. Basically, a 2,000% cost of living increase, a $6,500 adjustment for the Commerce Park Airfield manager, a $6,000 adjustment for the Recreation Enrichment Coordinator, reclassification from hourly to salary for the Recreation Enrichment Coordinator, and a $2,000 adjustment for the Administrative Assistant Deputy Assessor. Support.
Just one correction. I think you accidentally read a 2,000% increase.
Oh.
Just a 2% increase.
Yeah, that would have us budgeting all over again.
Sorry, guys.
So thank you. I would be asking to join the management staff. Okay, thank you for that correction, Mr. Ranka. And was seconded by Treasurer Van Oss. As Mrs. Darsnak pointed out, the cost of living increases. Not every management member got a 2%. We had market adjustments for exemplary performance. Not all the board members are in favor of this or in favor of different incremental approaches. I can't say enough for the township staff. And we keep good people by paying them for their efforts. I can thank them all day long, but eventually they have to make their house payments. So we reward them for their efforts. Some, have demonstrated exemplary performance, and we knew they were going to get a market adjustment. And the increase for my deputy assessor, who is just about the extent of my staff, my deputy assessor was a special consideration. She almost single-handedly saved us $250,000 in assessments. It was her nuts and bolts. Mr. O'Donnell is the township's assessor, but he gives the numbers to Carol. Carol makes some work, gets it to the county, gets it done, and again, when the county wanted to take over assessing this community, it was going to be about $250,000. I think it was $60 over 6,000 properties. Anyway, it was breathtaking, and Carol made it happen. And my promise to her was, if you can get it done, if you can keep the 14-point review running on track, which we passed with one of the few communities to get all 200 points in that, you can't do better than perfect. I said I would reward her, if at all possible, for her efforts. We are somewhere in a little bit of a surplus. We have some. I can't do my job without her, so I'm asking for that. Other questions, other comments from the board? Mr. Budney.
I have a procedural question. Is this an all or nothing? In other words, if there's something within that motion, one part of it or two parts that we don't like, do we have to vote the whole thing down or the whole thing up? Is that it? Is that what the position we're in?
I believe that's a position
We can't break them apart?
we could, at another meeting, we could bring it up and rescind if we don't like some portion.
Well, you could offer a friendly amendment if you wanted to change it, and then whoever was the second could either accept or reject that friendly amendment. And then at that point, we could vote this up or down, or you could propose an alternate motion as well.
Okay, so you have several courses of action.
I think, the way that this is proposed.
Here it is.
To me, it's a 2% increase, but then you've got somebody who, like Mr. Duker, is well-deserved of an increase. He's below market rate for his position, that's for sure. And I would definitely approve something like that. I don't particularly care that this was all bundled into one, forcing us to do an all or nothing. The other thing is I'm confused because it says it's a cost of living adjustment. Then on the other hand, it says that some management individuals did not receive this, indicating that it's performance-based. And if it isn't performance-based, nowhere did I ever see, or I don't believe any of the board members saw what that performance-based was, what the numbers were that came out of that. And if there's individuals who were below it, I think that we would hope that we would be made aware of people who are not currently, doing well in their positions. And, the other thing is, I just don't feel that the information's complete from the standpoint of it's asking for 2% increase, but nowhere does it say what their current salaries are.
Mr. Supervisor,
I think that's in the...
Mr. Supervisor, do we need to either break this up or keep it as one before we go into the discussion?
No, you can have the discussion and then break it up at any point.
Okay, so right now, we're discussing based on this moving as published.
But
we're not done.
Okay.
So, other comments from the board on the proposed management pay scale?
If I may, I certainly have a comment on it. This is obviously a tough issue because you're deciding, whether to give someone a boost in their wages or not. I would hope, and I'm not familiar with the job, every one of the people who are getting an adjustment, what they do. And all that was given to me and my board members were statements that these people are being brought up to somebody else's, somebody else makes more money than them and they're being brought up to that level. I would like to see more than that, more reasoning than just somebody else is getting paid more than they are. I am familiar with a couple of the people. I've worked with them all year, and I would certainly think that they're entitled to those amounts, but that's based only because I happen, by chance, to work with them. If I didn't, I'd be sitting here just looking at they don't make as much as someone else. And I really don't care for that. As far as the 2% cost of living increase, I have a problem with that simply because there are two things this board has to look at when you're looking at wages. Not only are the people deserving of that raise, but also can the township afford the raise? And these raises are not a single year thing. they become part of us until that person leaves now. And it's not only the wage that they're getting, it's an increase in taxes, it's an increase in workman's comp, it's an increase in MERS, it's a lot of other increases. So whatever the dollar amount here doesn't really reflect the total dollar amount that the township is saddled with from this point forward if we approve it. So I do have a problem with the 2%. Our people got a 2% last year. They're above the CPI. In fact, I did some research into the MTA, which we all love, the Michigan Township Association. They did a salary study. All our people are very well paid. They're at the, in most cases, the top end of the scale. It's not to say that necessarily they don't deserve these raises, but I don't see, with projected deficits in the next 3 years of anywhere from $425,000 to $500,000, that we can afford this now. We have to look at it. We have to do something about it. We have to come up with some type of thought process from the board that if in fact we have those kinds of losses, we can't strap them from here on out with no raises because of that. We have to come up with a way to give them something. But I don't believe this is the year to do it.
Okay, let me, I'm just going to come out and say I support this. I support this as it's published. I know Dale and I and Ann have pored over this, spent hours on it. But let me address a couple of the points you brought up, Mr. Budney, and just the MTA. Consider this state has townships that range from 200 year-round residents to almost 100,000 residents. We are in one of the higher, if not the highest cost of living areas. Probably some of the northern suburbs would be a higher cost of living, but we're in a high cost of living area. So to take the whole state of Michigan, using that as the background, I don't think it serves the purpose that obviously you intended. The budget projections, unfortunately, and this is one of the reasons Ann and I are barely speaking, her budget projections, and I'm sorry, these are the last ones you saw, so it's not, I don't want to put this in any kind of derogatory, but the last budget projections you saw were, Ann calls them conservative, I call them very pessimistic. We looked at this afternoon other projections, and I said, don't give me conservative, give me your best estimate, what we know right now. And based on that, the countdown to zero is long ended, and we're looking at budget surpluses not next year, the year after that. It looks like we might be generating a surplus. And my concern is, I don't think we can afford not to give these employees, these management people, a raise. They're working with a staff dramatically reduced from 5 or 6 years ago, still providing the services, getting things done in overall a very efficient manner. They're working harder. They're working smarter, but they're working harder also. And I can thank them, I can buy them flowers, I can pat them on the back, but at some point, they've got to pay their bills, they've got to make their family decisions based on income. And because of that, I'm going to support this. I may get outvoted, but I support this.
I understand that, and the fact that we gave them a raise last year, I think we can take a year not to give them a raise and look at it again next year and revisit it. I don't see, based on what, and you talk about a number of things that I don't have before me. In fact, as I say, looking at the MTA salary thing, you say that's not a fair, not a fair way to look at it. But that's exactly what was presented to us in the motion and I'm just going to quote, the enrichment coordinator, to bring them in line with other classifications within the township, the administrative assistant, because pay range of this type of position in similar counties is $35,000 to $55,000. That's exactly what I was given to approve this. So I'm just saying, using the same type of thought process, which is not a good process, because quite truthfully, I don't really care that much what other towns pay their people. I care about what Groseal does, and that's all we can really look at, because nobody's like Groseal except Groseal. And I just wanted to point out that as an average, in looking at that report of all the townships, we pay our people good. That's not to say at all that they don't deserve it. I'm certainly wouldn't want to say that. I'm just saying that this year I do not believe that it's the year to give this 2% raise.
All right, thank you, Mr. Budney. Probably not done. Other comments from the board?
Yes.
Mr. Malvesto.
Eric, did you have something?
Go ahead.
No. In looking at this chart that we were given, one thing comes to mind immediately, that there's, of all the employees who are scheduled for a 2% raise, it appears that who would currently be the lowest paid employee is not in line for that 2% raise, and I would question why. It would kind of go along with Trustee Smith's comment as to, is this a merit raise or is this a cost of living? And if it is cost of living, why this person was excluded? I don't have any information to back that up, so that's why I'm asking a question. I'm more opposed or more concerned about the late minute that we were given this chart to view and look at. And I don't disagree that I'm going to say there's 3 employees whose salaries are being increased, that they don't deserve it. I know for certain that they all work extremely hard. I'm just questioning the way this came about, and that's my reluctance of this whole thing. My major concern. But I'd like to know why the one person is not being granted a 2% increase or cost of living, if that's what it is.
It looks like that person's in line for a market adjustment rather than the 2%.
No, I don't think so.
I didn't see that. I'm sorry, Eric.
No.
Not at all. There were 3 market adjustments on there, and he was not one of them.
Yeah, there was one who received, was not listed for a raise or a market adjustment. And there's a reasoning.
Well,
he's already got a
What's the rationale behind doing a market adjustment for all but one employee?
Cost of living.
How do you, what's the rationale behind, if it's going to indeed be performance-based, then it should be performance-based across the board. If it is indeed going to be 2% across the board, then it should be across the board.
Well, I think we blended both options.
Who's we?
It's not, who's we? I'll start myself and the township manager, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Ream at this point.
Just to remind the board the 3 ways the management people get wage adjustments. One is a cost of living. If the board established a cost of living, and it's my recommendation on that chart that the employees are deserving of a cost of living, it gets put on the chart. The second way is the market adjustment, where we evaluate the position in relationship to, has that job changed? How is it in relationship to the actual field and those positions themselves in the market? Do we have a newly hired employee that we brought in at a lower wage and then worked up? And the third way is strictly performance-based, where the board would say, here's a pot of money for performance reviews, and that money is distributed based upon a recommendation of myself as township manager, on whether it's 10%, 1%, 0%, 5%, whatever that case may be. Well, obviously, we're not in a financial situation to have those types of monies afforded. There have been years in the past where it's, the cost of living is X and there's a performance pot. So, again, those three ways: cost of living, and the cost of living is not guaranteed, market adjustment, or performance.
Thank you, Mr. Rim. Other comments from the board? Is there any, before we, Mr. Posias, do you have a?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Posias.
Yes, I do. I take these things and I look at them, not with an adding machine and a pencil, but with my heart. I see that we've lopped 20 people out of our township staff in the last year or so. And we've expected, and this township staff remaining has picked up the load and done it as well or better than ever. And we're worried about 2%. I don't know where that fairness comes from. I will fully support this proposal.
Then would you support it for the one employee who isn't scheduled to get it? That would be my question.
I support it as written.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Posias. Other comments? Mr. Van Oss.
Just a couple of comments. The PPOM and the TPOM all have teams that put together a negotiation for the wages and salaries for the union workers on both the maintenance side and the police side. We are the only true line of defense for our employees. Now, I spent a lot of time here, and I'm not going to, for 1 minute, compare our employees to any other community, because I don't think there's any comparison. I think these people jump in, do what they have to do, or do what they're asked to do. And I don't think a cost of living is probably a proper statement here, because I think there were some good comments made. How can you differentiate? But this is all based on recommendations from the people that know. And the people that know would be directly the township manager, who works with them every day, meets with them every day, and sets up the requirements for them. And certainly if he recommends to me, and the funds are available to move forward with this compensation, and I can only talk with the people that I directly work with, which would be Ann and Mike and Lorenda and people like that, but I would fully support this pay increase.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Other comments? Mr. Clerk Ranko.
Sure. Two things. Market adjustment. I think it is important to note what the people in the adjacent communities are making and what in close communities are making, because those are communities where these people could jump to if they needed to or if they wanted to. So I think that's the only important part about that. And I think the market adjustment is fair. The way the three people here are positioned. And I think that those three people could also get those jobs in other communities and make that money. So I'd rather have them here than going to another community. So that speaks to the market adjustment. As far as the 2% increase, you got to remember that we took away money in the last 2 years with cost of health care. So Ann pointed out that the cost of health care to the township is capped. It's not capped to the employees. Employees are paying more. So this 2%, which amounts to, from the math here, about $15,000 a year, doesn't even make up the employees whole for the compensation that we've taken away. So I see I don't see any issues here with this meager 2% increase.
Thank you, Clerk Ranko. Mr. Malvesto.
I'm having a hard time with the one, if this is being brought before us as a 2% cost of living increase, and one person is being singled out and is not getting that. I'm opposed to that. This may not be the place to discuss the reason for it, but if it's a cost of living increase, then if it's across the board and to single out one employee, then it looks more like it's a merit increase, and I'm just having a hard time with that. It just the way this has come about and the way it's been presented. But to single out the one person, I just find it. I'm just opposed to that. I'm sorry.
Okay, my hopefully closing comments.
While you're thinking about that, just really quickly, so Trustee Bundy asked if there's two ways to move forward, just to remind everybody. So, Mr. Supervisor, you brought up the amendment. So if you wanted to change the amendment as it is, you would have to agree to change it, and whoever seconded would also have to agree to change it. So that's how we would change the current amendment. And then it could be, this is either voted up or down, and it could be brought back as a separate amendment written as whoever proposes it.
Okay, my closing comments are that, and had this discussion with the staff. The staff is the core. It's what keeps the township running. We're temporary office holders. We're transients. Some of us will be here longer than others. Some will, for reasons known only to them, will be here for a short period of time and gone. We know how long Trustee Johnson was here. Things change. But the township staff, the township management staff, does the best they can dealing with us passing through, dealing with the union contracts, demands, the changes in their world, and they keep the township running. They manage, we govern, but they manage. And theirs is, I think, by far the more difficult job under the circumstances they've been forced to work. I want to move this along as it is. There are topics we can discuss in other venues. We can change this in the future if we see a dramatic need to alter one of these. We always have the ability to do that. But I would like to move this forward as it is unless I'm outvoted. So where do we stand on the votes? Closing comments, Mr. Budney. You may.
Just a minute.
Certainly may.
Yeah, I just have a couple more things to say. I know there's no doubt if financially things were fabulous, and I would feel much more comfortable with allocating a 2% increase. But I've heard a couple comments that we've downsized our people, but they're still doing a great job, and in fact they're doing more. So to me, that says that we've actually right-sized our staffing levels to a degree, because I do see areas and departments that struggle. So maybe we need to, as a board or working in tandem with management, take a look at what people are doing in certain areas and put people where they're supposed to be, or filling gaps, however that may be. But to me, it seems like we've possibly have right-sized ourselves. But if we look at giving, I do hear complaints also that we're short-staffed in certain areas. And if that is true, and we give a raise that equals to $40,000 to $50,000 per year, to me, I look at that and go, well, do you want 2%? Or do you want another staff member, possibly? And these are the types of things that I think if we don't talk about and we don't discuss and thoroughly look at these things and analyze them and say, what do you guys really want? Do you want 2% or do you want another person? I mean, those are the types of things that, are going on in my head. And, I guess the last thing when you talk about healthcare, that's just, to me, the new reality, unfortunately, and I don't think it's going to improve with the healthcare reform. I mean, you see that in the corporate sector, you see it in education, and you see it now in government. I don't think it's going to change. But based on how this particular piece of legislation is written, I would not approve it. But what I would want to do is extract those people who are due just right rating. I would prefer to remove those and put that into a separate piece, because I would be all about doing that.
I suppose you could offer that as an amendment.
Okay, I would like to amend that we...
Are we doing this properly?
Yeah, I don't know.
Parliamentary?
No? Sharon's shaking her head. She's like, no.
Okay, Mrs. Smith intends to propose an amendment. I guess it would be a friendly amendment?
It's friendly if you accept it, right?
Okay.
The maker and the...
Okay, it was my motion, so,
Okay.
And it will become an unfriendly amendment because I will not entertain it.
Well, boo.
So your comment that we are right-sized, we're running lean, we're not doing more with the staff we have, we're doing less, we're contracting out. That may work for a while. I don't know what the future holds, but we're working these people hard. They're taking on additional duties.
I know that,
and
but I
I'm
also
darn
know-
proud of all of them.
I
And
am
the
too.
best I can do is pay them.
But here's the thing that I know is I don't see a lot of people leaving in droves. I don't hear a lot of complaints. And you're right. We want to keep people. There's no doubt on it. No doubt in my mind. But the thing is, I look at commissions and our board to be the checks and balances that the elected, that the residents put us in place for. And I want to be responsible with taxpayer dollars. I think we've got so many uncertain things out there. We've got Rio Road things, we've got the ACO, MIOSHA, we've got, some variable unfunded liability issues with MERS if we were to ever want to buy ourselves out of that and go to a 401k. We've got roads, we've got so many other unforeseen things, and I just don't think that to throw out a reward of 2% right now is the appropriate thing to do. And that's my final word. And I know I'm not convincing or changing anybody's mind, but that is how I feel. And it's not about them being, overpaid or anything like that. It's just, to me, it doesn't seem like we can do this right now.
Okay. Your status, the amendment was proposed and rejected. What's the next, as a friendly amendment? You can, I guess, propose it now as a less than friendly amendment?
We need to vote.
We need to vote on this.
Vote on.
We need to call a question.
Well, then, are we prepared to vote? Rather than call the question, is the commentary done? We'll put
That's how you would do it. You would call the vote on the current standing motion. And if that fails, then there's...
Okay. Obviously, this doesn't. I'm glad we have parliamentarians here. Okay, with that being the last comment, the question, but we have to go through a vote to call the question if I propose it that way.
Just calling a regular vote.
Are we ready?
There's a vote and a motion and a second on the floor.
Okay, I'll make this a roll call vote.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, well, it was coming anyway. So, and since I introduced the motion, I will vote first, and the supervisor votes aye. Mr. Clerk?
Aye.
Mr. Treasurer?
Aye.
Trustee Malvesto?
For reasons stated, nay.
Trustee Budney?
Sadly, nay.
Trustee Posiask?
Aye.
And Trustee Smith?
Nay.
Okay, I'm glad there's only 7 numbers. We have a 4-3 vote in the affirm. The motion passes. Good discussion, and of course, we can always investigate this again at a future meeting.
You can also always investigate the employees that did not get the 2%.
True, that's also, they're all moving targets. All right, with that, the action item, moving to action item number 7, the bid for the ADA Universal Access Pool Lift at Water's Edge. I'd ask Trustee Malvesto, because that will be a rec, to introduce that, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Supervisor. Proposed motion or recommended action is to, based on a review and recommendations of the Recreation Director and Township Engineer and comments from the low bidders' references, we grant approval to accept a bid of $16,660 for 2 ADA-compliant pool lifts from Barazini Construction. Barazini Construction must provide, deliver, and install lifts as indicated in the contract documents. Do you want me to go on?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Now you can go on. Now a little more of the history.
Okay.
Or actually, you can turn it over to Mr. Rooney.
Be happy to.
Thank you. As you know, the ADA Act has a law where all public pools require pool lifts now. And then we had some money back in August reprogramming federal block grant money that would pay for those lifts. We got approval to go out for bid, and then you see the results here. Based on the references, engineers checked, and also talking to the gentleman that came out to the pool from the recommended company. I think we've got a real good project going here and funded.
Okay, it's out, this is funded by CDBG, part of that CDBG.
Correct.
Development Block Grant funding?
Yep, and it's been talked about probably over the, several months by the Recreation Commission. I've updated during the budget process, and it'd be nice to get those in place. Actually, the law went in January 31st of 2013, but the federal government knew a lot of the communities and commercial operators were short on money, and they gave us time to work through it. So we're in good standing. It's nice to get that in place for this coming summer.
We've got to comply with the federal strictures, and it's the right thing to do.
Right.
I mean, it's just the right thing to do, and it would be inexcusable if we didn't do it because the federal government's willing to fund it. Comments on the ADA lift from the board? With none offered, those sorry, Mr. Malvesto.
Tim?
Yes.
What would be your projected installation date?
As soon as the weather clears, we'll make purchase of it, and then, I would say...
It would be available for the opening of...
Oh, definitely, yep, we'll have it in place. Yep.
If the snow ever disappears.
Yeah, just for lifting ice out of the pool. Other comments, questions from the board members for Mr. Rooney? There was none offered. Those in favor of approving the purchase of the universal, the term ADA is kind of going out of favor, and it's universal access was taken over. It just, I think it's a better term, but based on the recommendation, approve the bid of $16,660 for 2 compliant pool lifts from Barzini Construction. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None offered. That carries. Thank you, Mr. Rooney. Moving down. Mrs. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor.
I think your microphone is off.
Hello?
Oh, now it's that's better.
Proposed motion to approve the purchase of a 3-camera system from the low bidder, Advanced Lighting and Sound of Troy, Michigan, for $15,246, as recommended by the Communication Commission at the March 18th, 2014 Communication Commission meeting.
Support. Okay, motion is second.
You want some little bit of history?
Yes, please.
The history, or as far as the history, the system will replace the present boardroom cameras, the 3 cameras here that have been in use since 2000. This purchase was approved in the 2013-2014 Groseal Township budget. This is the final part of the approved 3-part capital improvement plan authorized by the Township Board. The total authorized budget for these updates was $70,000. The final total will be $50,775. They went out for bids on, March 17th, and received the 2 bids on March 17th, 2014.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Smith. I think, would you invite Mr. Fournier to explain?
Sure. Do you have anything else to add?
He seems queued up, ready to add his, I don't want to call it a sales pitch, but some information on the necessity or perceived necessity of this purchase.
I'm not here to add to the length of the meeting. If you have questions, history, I'll give you the best answers that I got. But basically, the first question came up from Woody about the high definition. The real challenge now is trying to find a camera that isn't high definition, because everything from your phone to your iPad to your commercial, your small cameras, camcorders are all high definition. And also the technology that exists before high definition is being phased out. So the real challenge would be to find a camera that's not. And also, the better quality picture we send Comcast and WOW, the better quality picture we'll get back. There's a saying in video, garbage in, garbage out. And so, high definition picture is going to be better. The last thing is that talking to a couple other communities and a couple of Comcast employees themselves, they just got a new program director who has been starting to talk about broadcasting the PEG channels, which is public education and government channels, in high definition. So we don't have a promise, but since the whole object of this project was to upgrade the technology to the cutting edge, when and if WOW and Comcast start sending high definition back, we will be prepared. So at the end of this project, we'll have high definition from the camera to the cable cast. So everything on our end will be state of the art.
Let's see. My first concern is we've had, at least I get numerous reports of it. Nobody seems to be too concerned with the video. It's the audio that's been...
The audio problems, 95, in fact, we had a WOW representative in here, and we discussed this with her last week. The audio problems are external. They're outside of this building. We are sending audio out. I'm beating a dead horse here, but the two companies did not put equal systems in when they raced to fiber optic the island, and the Comcast system is inferior, and at times storms. They have a default system in their head end, and there's a storm or they have a power outage. It goes back to a default, which kills our audio. And Dale will tell you, we've had Comcast in here numerous times, and I'm sending them out our audio, and they make a phone call to the head end in Southgate, and they make an adjustment, and all of a sudden it's back. So, we've got systems. We have a return feed from Comcast. We are monitoring, and 95% of the time it's the external audio. It's not in this building.
So Ted, at times when these mics go out,
that's a computer system that, like all computer systems, every once in a while need to be rebooted. But the mics go. We also have. I'm not complaining, but the commission members and the board members don't always properly use the mic system or are comfortable with the use of the mic system, and so, a lot of times it's operator error. So I know that doesn't sound. I'll hit myself for you.
Mrs. Smith.
Yeah. I actually voted this particular motion down at the commission level, and I had a couple reasons for it. One is because, the bids weren't basically handed over to us
literally like 5 minutes before the meeting started, in which time I didn't necessarily have, and I can't imagine that the other commissioners really had ample time to review it. And it's not that I don't trust what Ted's giving me or the commission. I just thought, again, looking as checks and balances, I'd like to see a little bit more dialogue about, other options, whether it's wireless, and I know there's a whole thing in here as to why it can't be wireless or why it's not being looked at. But I think that there's other options that we could and should consider when it comes to these sort of things. And then, we as the board kind of have to deal with all this stuff. And I appreciate your comment about user error, but I can't tell you how many times, we've pushed these buttons and they turn on and off and they don't work. And it's frustrating when you are up here because when it doesn't work, we look goofy. And to me, it just seemed like I think there probably could have been more options available and discussed at the commission level before coming here. And I know it's trying to get it done by the end of the budget year. And again, it's like this last minute, hurry, 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 we got to approve it and put it in front of us. And it would be great to get the board's feedback about things beforehand to say, what are you guys looking for? Because I know other commissioners from other commissions have said, we prefer to do our meetings downstairs in a conference room as opposed to in this linear table, which makes it very difficult to some of these working type meetings that are still considered their commission meetings that are recorded. So I figured if there was options to do remote cameras that could be moved to different locations, that would be something, logical consideration. But It is what it is, so those are just my 2 cents.
Well, let me answer some of your concerns. First of all, as far as the bids given to you in so tight a space, our original bake-up commission meeting was on Friday, and the bids came in on Monday, so we moved the meeting closer to the bids, and so that's why the timing was close. Second of all, wireless is an option, but the technology right now exists to send the picture from here to the other room, but you can't pan the camera, tilt the camera, zoom in on the camera. We would have to put 3 people in the room operating the camera at about $30 a person per meeting, which would, quick math, be about $9,500 a year.
So you've researched all camera options as far as wireless?
After you raised your concerns about wireless, I made some calls, and I was told the technology, most wireless systems are just security cameras, just the fixed camera, they cover a wide shot, and that's most wireless systems are security. But for a boardroom operation, the actual pan, tilt, zoom, and all the other technical moving of the camera would have to be done by a technician or just put wide and stationary. So that's the 2 options. So wireless, people doing boardrooms do not recommend wireless operation. You had a couple other concerns, if you want to remind me. I had answers, but...
the non-stationary cameras that can be removed from the wall and then
I explained to you, every time you move electronic equipment, somewhere along the line, something's getting damaged. And that's why I've tried to make everything stationary. That's why at one point we used to tear things down, go to a location, build it, bring it back, tear it down, bring it back. In the old Meridian school days, we built studios there 2-3 times a week and moved the cameras, and all we got was damaged goods. So a hardwired stationary way is the best way to make sure they last, and that's the whole reasoning because of this, is get the new technology and make sure that you guys, or whoever follows us and you, doesn't have to do this again until 2030 or 2035 or somewhere down the road.
And Brian will be the only one.
Brian's one who's not so sure he wants this mug on high def going out to the world.
Ted, 2 questions. This is for 3 cameras, correct?
For 3 cameras, right.
So,
the big one that's right behind you, and the 2 in the boxes in the corner, they'll actually come out of the boxes. The cameras in your packets are about this big. If you've been to East River, the school has basically the same ones up on the ceiling, but those are 1-chip cameras that are 3 or 4 technologies behind what we're proposing to purchase.
So my second question would be, if I pronounce this right, Vadio?
Vadio.
What's the background on that? Is that, I would say, state-of-the-art? Is this a generally accepted?
Yeah, about 18.
For requesting quotes on Vadio.
We went for a camera demonstration about October 12, and we saw 2 or 3 camera systems, and by me, Kathy Walker and myself went, and we had 2 or 3 camera systems, and we, after discussing it, not in front of the buyer, but we discussed it afterwards, and this is the one that Kathy and I liked the best, and so that's why we went out for it. Oh, I remember the other history. Before I came to the board, the previous budget year, not last year, but the previous one, we had 3 representatives come into here and say, what's the state of the art of all our systems? And we have about 4 or 5 different systems going on in this room. And after we did that, the consensus was there was a priority 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the way it came out was the system that we broadcast, the switcher and graphics, that was our worst system. And true to form, it died. We got a new one. We got the TriCaster. The second worst system was the electronics unit that we send the programs out, and he was right again. That died. and we put an airwave system in. That was the second component. Now, the third one that they recommended was the camera system. And we had to reboot it 2 or 3 times today to get it going. So I'm not saying it died yet, but it's in the hospice. And then the last system, and you brought up, was the audio system. And what we plan on doing is taking a really hard look at it this fiscal year, and then coming into the next budget process, we'll have firm recommendations on upgrading the audio system to state-of-the-art. So by a year from now, we will be state-of-the-art and done. And I was piecemealing it at one of the budget meetings. I think Mr. Van said, hey, don't go at it one piece at a time, let's do it this year. So we budgeted $70,000 in the present budget, and like it says in your packet, we're going to come in at just under $51,000. So I think we got some good bids and we saved some money.
Will these cameras here be able to be utilized in some of the other conference rooms? That, again, we're not, I'd like to see that.
There's 2 problems. Actually, one real big one is that if we take this system out and remove it from the control room, if we were to take it and put it downstairs, we'd have to put everything back in the control room, and there just isn't any more room for two separate camera systems to be operated in the control room. Because this has separate camera control units and a separate camera control joysticks and a switcher that we have to use, and we're going to have to take that out to put the new one in. So I mean, it's possible, but we'd have to do a whole lot of figuring.
I'd just like to make a suggestion that what room did you want to have a camera in other than this one?
Well, I mean, I know that open space sometimes meets downstairs. The festival commission sometimes meets either downstairs or over here. So it's just a matter of choosing one that's probably either the most functional and easiest for him to do it, or, whichever one allows for more space for attendees to be.
Well, we have the option of moving any commission or committee meeting in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's all we broadcast.
Right.
And I would say that because we have some budget flexibility here, if you feel that there's another conference room, we should have one. Maybe we should expand this and make that available rather than moving equipment around. Just a thought.
Yeah, I just hate to spend more money if we can utilize.
Well, I understand that, but the realization is that if you don't want to spend any more money, the easiest way is to move them in here, where we can get them on camera.
Yeah.
And I noticed that oftentimes the Open Space Committee has a table up front here, and they just do it whatever's comfortable for them, and we can televise that. So just a thought.
The problem, the reality is this room was designed back in 1999, 1998, strictly for all the meetings, and we never really took that we were going to have meetings around tables and stuff. It was basically, this room was designed to hold the business meetings, and we never projected to be on that.
Tim, I'm sorry, Ted.
That's okay. I like Tim.
Just don't call you late for dinner.
I never have.
No. This particular camera is a high definition, and it has a 19 power optical zoom on it, I see. In one of the other rooms, if you were to install a camera, is there a camera with a fixed wide-angle lens that would just cover that particular room? Or
we could
you never looked at it that way?
I never looked at it. They had their little small GoPro cameras that just are locked wide. When you set it, it's locked wide, and it's in there. But it's going to be, if the meeting's 2 hours, it's going to be a 2-hour wide shot like this with no.
I know what I'm asking. I'm just as a
The room's wired. The room's wired. I haven't looked into it. I don't have really a good answer for you, but I'm sure we could get a small camera and just lock it wide if that's acceptable to individual meetings.
Again, it was just a question if that was possible. Thank you.
Just a couple comments from this end. Number one, I understand that you want the new cameras, and I understand that a camera 12 or 14 years old is kind of like a television that's 12 or 14 years old. It's at the end of its reasonable life. And so I guess I don't have a problem with purchasing them. I looked at this board packet. It was 60 pages long, of which a third was specs on the cameras. And I got this bid package in the mail, in the email, yesterday. It was sent out to Friday, believe it or not. Mine didn't get here until Sunday. Where it got lost, I don't know. But for me to try to even attempt to analyze this didn't happen. So I'm trusting you. You're saying it's the best system out there, and I guess I believe that. But I will mirror a couple things. Number one, open space and greenways and open space. Every time we have a meeting up here, there are complaints about the way the room is left and the way it's disassembled. And I guess we can be pretty arbitrary and say this is the way it's going to be. We're all going to sit at the table here. But I tried not to do that. We've had the opportunity to show a couple of Greenway Open Space Committee meetings in that room, and they didn't come out half bad, and the sound was pretty decent. Which was something that made me happy. But let's address just the sound a little bit more to satisfy me. It frustrates me when I push the mute button and nothing happens. It frustrates me when I'm sitting here and my mute button goes from mute to on without me touching it. And the best explanation I've heard was gremlins. And that drives me nuts. It's not gremlins. There's a problem. And it's got to be fixed. I've talked to you and others about it for a couple of years. It may be a smaller item on the grand list of things that you have to do, but that one's got to be fixed. And I don't understand why Comcast can give me good sound on 129 channels except number 12.
Yeah, and just so you know, I've actually asked Ted to create a log so that anytime we do, receive customer complaints about audio not working, that he's going to track it so that at some point, if we ever get into a place where we can start negotiating with these franchises again, which I doubt, but anyway, we'd at least have some collected data to say, look, the stuff that's going outside on your end stinks. It needs to be improved.
End of my comments.
I'll answer your question. It's not gremlins. You have to understand that you have a button here. People in the back have a button here too. During the last conversation where you guys were all talking back and forth, all your mics were open, which is not a good thing because sound bounces around this room and you have layers of audio going out and it starts sounding with reverb and hollow and stuff like that. The system, and this is what I referred to as Operation Error, this system is designed for legislation and legislative bodies. If you ever watch C-SPAN, there's a dance that goes on with the microphone. When you speak, if your mic is open and the words come across the microphone, it is part of the record. So if you're having a sidebar over there and your mics are open and you say whatever the guy down at the end is full of baloney, technically it's supposed to be part of the record. So these are designed strictly for bodies that legislate. The dance that has to be done is when you want to speak, you have to speak with purpose. You hit the mute button and make sure your mic's on. Watch C-SPAN. All the senators do it, all the congressmen do it. Then they speak into the mic. And the reason being, these mics have a very small field to pick up audio. If I'm talking to you, I take this mic over here, it's not going to pick me up. All right? If I'm talking to Lauren, the mic's over here, it's not going to pick me up. So whenever you talk, you have to speak through across the mic. So if I'm speaking to Lauren, I move my mic. If I'm going to go back and speak to Wally, I have to speak across the mic. That's part of the dance. And when you're done, you mute the button. All right? A lot of times, you leave your mic on, and the kids in the back, or the people in the back, are having too much audio, they start muting your button. So you think it's on, they've shut you off for the betterment of the broadcast. So I've explained this over and over and over again through the years, but that's the dance that you as legislatures have to do. You know, I'm serious about that. That's why this whole system is designed that way, because seriously, if somebody says something and it comes across the mic, it's part of the record. And so this is designed to give you the ability to mute your mic and have a discussion that's not part of the record. If you had mics that picked downstairs, we have a PZM mic, and the PZM mic picks everything up in the room. It's a stronger mic. That's why it's a different sound.
My comment about the mute button, it doesn't bother me if it's muted, but it does bother me when someone unmutes it without me being aware of it.
Well, I'm not going to, I just don't think that happens very much, because what the people in the back do is they mute you when your mic's open and it's not necessary. So
Let me move this back to the purchase under, we know we have some mechanical shortcomings, but let's get back to the question under consideration.
I only have 3 more comments and then, or requests. One is if you can look into the GoPro camera for one of the other conference rooms, or come up with a solution and, you know, something that we can consider. And then, you know, I still believe that the mics are an issue. I think that, you know, and I think you were mentioning that next year, in the next year's budget, it was going to be looked at. So.
Oh, yeah, we're going to tell you, and I told you guys in the budget meetings that that was the plan. And the reason that was is because the experts that came in here and talked to us about the state of our equipment made it that the 4th priority.
Okay.
And my 3rd and final is, in the future, I'm making a request of both yourself and Kathy Walker to include me in these sort of meetings and explanations and tours when you go to decide microphones and cameras and all those other things.
To be totally honest with you, you weren't in the board yet. This was pre your swearing in. It was October 2012. So it wasn't a slight of any sort.
Okay, other questions, comments for either Mrs. Smith or for Mr. Fournier on this motion? All right, with none offered. Let's see, still working. Those in favor of approving the purchase of the Vadio high-definition cameras for the boardroom, I forget what the dollar amount was, 51, because I'm not...
15,236, I think.
15,230, okay, because it's not on this page anymore. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, none offered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Mr. Fournier. All right. Why we all showed up this evening. Action item number 11, approval of the 2014-15 fiscal year township budget. And I move that we adopt the fiscal year ending in 2015 combined township budget effective April 1st through March 31st of 2015. Okay, moved by the supervisor, seconded by Treasurer Van Oos. We have... what stone has been left unturned on this budget? Ms. Starsnack gave a pretty good presentation. There are many, many, many pages if you want to get into each cost center and each line. I'm going to start with saying there was a lot of input into the generation of this budget. We had Trustee Smith, Trustee Budney, Treasurer Van Oos, and myself working with Mrs. Starsnack, the managers, for several days. The managers all know, keep costs down, come up with better ideas. They didn't let us down. We had the input trying to steer the various departments in the right directions from the trustees. And when again, Ann and I are speaking, I hounded her daily. We went back and forth. We were looking at a more realistic budget. Yes, she called her previous budgeting conservative. I thought it was pessimistic. We are still working on one that, again, there are moving targets, and there are things we can't control. We get surprises, usually bad, sometimes good, that we really can't tell the outcome. All we do is give our best estimate with what we know at the time, what we've seen in the past, what we think we can predict. And I am very happy with this budget. We are looking at balancing, or being very close to, and hopefully in the years to come, we'll have the dilemma of deciding what to do with budget surpluses and how much we want to build our cash reserves to. But in the meantime, outstanding job by all the managers. Thank you, Mrs. Darsniak, for your expertise and your patience in dealing with my incessant questions. And I will open up to questions from the board or comments on the budget. We're all just afraid of it now because I've
heard about it so much. I don't want to hear about it anymore.
Well, Mr. Clerk.
You know, it's a great process. It takes a long time, and it definitely takes a lot of effort by the staff, on the board, and by even the commissions in a lot of cases. And it's great to see it come together. And I think you've got, I don't think you have the crystal ball, but you seem to have a pretty darn good vision for the future. And you attend a lot of conferences, get a lot of expert opinions from from different consultants, and your budgeting is, I think, very conservative and has led the township down some very good paths in the past. So I'm very happy to see the process and happy with this budget as it's presented.
Thank you, Clerk Ranka. Other comments from the board? All right, with none offered, those in favor of approving the 2014-15 fiscal year township budget as presented earlier this evening and is published in the books available on the table and will be online shortly, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None offered. The budget carries. Again, Mrs. Darsniak, fine job. Thank you. And all those, which is all the trustees, all the managers who helped make this happen, since the budget's my responsibility and to execute. Thank you. We're solvent for another year, and we're doing so. That concludes our action items. We'll move to the clerk's report.
No clerk's report today.
We'll move to the treasurer's report.
All financial information expenditures are available online on my website. Everything that I said before, I'm not going to say it again. And Mike, we have a meeting the third Monday? Third Monday this week, Airports Commerce Park. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Treasurer Van Oss. Trustees, Mr. Posiask.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Greenways Open Space Meeting is always the first Tuesday of the month at 7:30. The Bike Path Commission is also on the third Tuesday of the month. We'd like to see all people interested to come on down. This is the important, busy starting time for both committees, and your input would be deeply appreciated. Let's go talk about water fountains and bricks and fixing up our paths and get off to another roaring good start. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Posiask. Mrs. Smith.
Oh, am I nice? I am. Just a couple things. Ted actually produced a really nice Island Fest video, and it's on our website if you want to take a look at it. It's also on the Facebook page of both the Township and the Island Fest Facebook page. So, Ted, thank you for doing that. Centennial celebration, as I mentioned previously, it is going to be Saturday, October 11th. Primary location is going to be in the Fifth Third Bank parking lot. So more details are to come on the events, the times, etc. There's been lots of conversations with the different entities, including the DDA, the Historical Society, and the Grosse Ile Schools. And one thing cool that the Festival Commission is already undertaking is the creation of a bumper sticker. And it was actually Ann's great idea to put together a bumper sticker, so we appreciate that. And this is what will be sold, and we're going to be selling these commemorative bumper stickers hopefully in the next few weeks here at Township Hall at the cashier's office. It'll also be for sale at the Island Fest as well as the actual event itself. And we'll be selling these for 100 pennies or $1.
Or $1. And it was...
And that's it.
Your project that generated, or your...
Yes, the Festival Commission came up with this.
Okay, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's going to be very nice.
Very nice. Anything else?
No, I'll get you guys one for free.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Smith. Mr. Malvesto.
I'd just like to add that the Rec Commission will be having a meeting this coming Thursday, 7:30. Isn't that correct, Tim? Yes. It'll be here, correct? Also, we're going ahead with the first annual kayak outing. We're looking for volunteers to help us work on the project and put it together. So you can contact myself, you can contact Tim at the rec department, or you can contact Kathy Walker through We Kayak. And again, we could use all the help we can get. Thank you.
What's the date on that again?
June 15th.
June 15th. Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Malvesto. Mr. Budney.
Thank you, sir. No ZBA tomorrow. I know. I know there's a lot of disappointment, but no ZBA tomorrow. The DPS will be the second Tuesday of April, and there will be a ZBA meeting next month. I would just like to say it's been a real interesting year, and I do look forward to working this coming year with not only the board but all the employees.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Budney.
Thank you for your effort.
Okay, let's see. I'll try to be brief. We are getting calls on the island-wide garage sale. Believe it or not, we had asking today, and I happen to know the dates. Saturday, August 22nd, or Friday and Saturday, August 22nd and August 23rd. Carol has flyers available in the back of the room. The Easter egg hunt, I think we have another meeting before this, but Carol wanted this out. The Easter egg hunt at Centennial Farm, Saturday, April 12th, 2014, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., $8 per child. Advanced registration is required, so I do want to get this out. Contact the rec department for tickets and further information. Catch Tim before he leaves tonight. We got a note from Wayne County Household Hazardous Waste Collection, May 3rd, 2014, the Wayne County Community College in Belleville. I'll try to see if there's one scheduled somewhere closer than taking hazardous waste all the way out to Belleville. See if we can get one a little bit closer in for us. Is Mr. Clark still here? I was going to ask him. We outlasted him. When they were planning a dump the jug, find the treasure, and I don't recall the dates on that.
It will be late April, early May.
Late April, May, so we have time to plan on that. So anyway, you're advised, and we will get that information out. I already mentioned the Centennial Celebration, looking for your inputs. We have, and this breaks my heart to bring this up again, but the fundraiser for Mrs. Lockwood, for Carrie, there are flyers in the back of the room. That's scheduled for Saturday, April the 12th at the Pilot House. Tickets are $25. I'll be there, and there isn't a better cause right now that we could support. We got a great press in the Downriver Profile. Actually, the supervisor of Huron Township sent me a copy and said, despite the fact that he knows me better, he said I photographed pretty well. But we got a great write-up in this. If you want, there's a few copies back there. I'm hoping the realtors will get them. It's just a good write-up on Grosse Seal. Very, very positive. What can I say? This is a very positive community. There was and there's no other word I can use for it, it's a fundraiser for Pat Somerville, but it's also a chance to meet Governor Snyder on April 14th. We also have a board meeting that day, but it'll be earlier in the evening. I think it's at the Country Club, and I'll try to find, other than through official means, because I don't think we can push this on the official, but you may, if you want a good chance to greet Governor Snyder, it's going to cost you, but he will be here on the island. And Mr. Clark, our legal bills, $4,546.80 to O'Reilly Rancilio. I know you're watching, Woody. That concludes the supervisor's report. I want to, again, thank everyone for getting us to where we are tonight. With that, let's see, with the township manager's report, do you have additional comments, Mr. Liam?
I just have one correction. You said at the budget, this is what we're all waiting for. I think this is what we're all waiting for.
Well, we extended, we're almost there. Extended public comment, any topic, anything that's on your mind, 3 minutes, you know the rules. With none offered, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by, who moved it? Trustee Budney, seconded by Trustee Posiask. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, none offered. I'll call it adjourned at 10:19. Went long. Thank you, folks. Drive carefully.